The clock blinked 6:04 a.m. when I smashed the second coffee mug. Not by accident. Not in anger. I held it in my hand for a full minute before letting it slip, fingertips unclenching slowly, like I was releasing something heavier than ceramic. It shattered in the sink with a soft, pitiful crack. Not explosive, just final. She wouldn't need it. She wasn't going to drink coffee here this morning. Not with me. I opened the cupboard. 4 mugs left. I stared at them all. Every one a souvenir from some trip she booked, some life she planned, some version of us that she crafted while quietly building an exit ramp I wasn't allowed to see. This morning was hers. She'd be curling her hair right now, humming something fake, applying mascara like she wasn't about to smile for someone else. I could practically feel the perfume seeping under the bedroom door. Not the usual floral one. The expensive one. The one that smells like intentions. I boiled water. 1 cup. Just mine. As the kettle screamed, I pulled the envelope from the drawer. White, unmarked. Inside, 2 pieces of paper. One was a receipt. The other was a letter. The receipt was for the hotel she thought I didn't know about. The letter was for her. Both would be waiting when she came home. If she came home. By the time the sun scraped its way over the rooftops, I was already gone. Not to work. Not to hide. I had one stop to make before everything fell apart. And it wasn't for revenge. It was for answers. Because last night I found something. Not a message. Not a photo. A memory. A single sentence, scribbled in the margin of one of her old journals, buried behind tax documents in a drawer I never touch. It said, "If Kyle ever finds out, I'll just cry and say I was lonely." That always works. That sentence didn't just hurt. It rewrote the last 3 years of my life. And this morning, she planned her little date. But I left a note that was going to burn through her perfect script like fire through paper. I didn't walk away from the house. I drifted. I floated through the street like a ghost, invisible to the trash trucks and the dog walkers and the early risers sipping their lukewarm coffees. I didn't feel my legs. I didn't feel anything, actually. There's something terrifyingly peaceful about emotional collapse. It's like when a building burns so long it stops making noise, just ash and silence and space. That was me. Ash and sneakers. She thought I'd explode. She was probably rehearsing her performance right now, even curling her hair to match the emotional breakdown she planned to trigger in me when I found out. The sobbing, the shaking, maybe even the "I made a mistake, Kyle." It didn't mean anything, Kyle. But there'd be no audience for her drama. I had cut the power to the stage. I took the train. Not to go anywhere, just to move. I sat with my duffel bag and a warm coffee, the only one made that morning, and watched cities blur past like frames of a life I was no longer part of. My phone buzzed once. Then again. Then it stopped. I didn't check. I already knew what it was. A text that probably said, "Hey, did you take the car? Or did you forget something?" Something light, casual, fake. The kind of thing you send when you're hiding a grenade in your purse. She was a master of soft lies. Always sugar on the outside, acid underneath. But what she didn't know, what she would only discover much later, is that I hadn't just left a note. I left a mirror. One that reflected every lie she thought she buried. Because I didn't write the letter in my own words. I wrote it in hers. Every quote, every flirt, every plan she made with him. I had them printed, dated, and highlighted in her exact phrasing. Not hacked, not stolen, just quietly observed. Over weeks, over months. I hadn't confronted her because I didn't need a confession. I needed clarity. And now I had it. The screenshots were chronological. The receipts were itemized. The timeline was airtight. I left them on the kitchen table, right under the vase of dead flowers she hadn't bothered to replace in 6 weeks. And on top of it all, my letter. This is your life now. No more pretending. No more rehearsals. You can go to your date tonight. No one will stop you. But when you come back, I won't be here. And for once, your tears won't buy you another day. I signed it with a single letter. Not my name. Not even K. Just an X. Because that's what I had become to her. An old file she meant to delete. She thought she was clever. That she was 3 moves ahead. But this wasn't a chess game. This wasn't strategy. It was survival. And I wasn't her pawn anymore. She was about to realize something awful. You don't get to break someone who's already finished breaking themselves. By noon, she still hadn't called. I imagined her circling the kitchen like a detective in a crime scene she created herself, staring at the evidence and wondering how it all unraveled so quickly. That's the thing about secrets. They rot from the inside out. And hers had been fermenting for a long time. I'd left no explanations in the letter. No accusations. Just her own words. Her messages to him. Her plans. Her lies. Her language. Laid out like a trail of breadcrumbs. Not for her to follow me, but for her to follow herself. All the way to the edge of the version of her life that she built on my patience and silence. I sat in a booth at a diner off the highway, watching a ceiling fan spin like it was trying to hypnotize me into forgetting everything. But I remembered it all. Every time she pulled away when I tried to hold her. Every excuse. Every missed dinner. Every new password. Every, "You're overthinking it," that gaslit my instincts into knots. The waitress asked if someone would be joining me. I said no. She smiled kindly. "You look like you've been left," she said. I nearly laughed. No, I wanted to say, I'm the one who left. I just look like this all the time. The truth is, I was always leaving her. Slowly, quietly, one unspoken disappointment at a time. The night she came home drunk and smelled like cologne that wasn't mine. The morning she kissed my cheek with a mouth that felt foreign. The birthday she forgot. The vacation she canceled for work, then posted beach photos with coworkers whose names I'd never heard. I kept thinking I'd confront her, that there would be a moment where I'd slam the door, yell something final, demand the truth. But when the truth finally came, I didn't want to scream. I just wanted to vanish. So I did, but I made sure my absence had weight. Because while she was out shopping for her date, new shoes, new excuses, her phone began receiving messages from a number she didn't recognize. No name, just screenshots. Snippets, carefully timed, spaced apart just enough to keep her panic simmering. Not everything at once, just breadcrumbs. The final one said, "Hope the wine tonight is as good as the lie you told last Thursday at 8:47 p.m. That one would get her, because she thought no one heard that conversation. But I did. She had whispered it in the hallway while I pretended to be asleep. "He's just my husband. I can handle him." She'd been handling me for years, smiling through it, performing domestic loyalty like it was her side job. But now she had no script, no lighting, no stage, just a kitchen full of evidence and a house that felt colder without someone to pretend for. And that's when she made her first mistake. She called him, the wrong person, because Zayden didn't answer. But someone else did. She dialed him. Of course she did. That's what people like her do when the walls start whispering. They run to the illusion they built. She probably thought he'd pick up and soothe her, say something charming like, "Don't worry, babe, he's just jealous," or "Come over, forget him." But that's not what happened. Because Zayden didn't answer. Not because he was busy. Not because he didn't care. Because Zayden was a fiction, and she had never bothered to check if the man she was falling for had a past that made sense. Or a last name. Or even a last scene. Because when she called, a voice answered that she didn't recognize. Calm. Quiet. Male. "Who is this?" she asked. A pause. Then, "You really don't know who I am, do you?" She went silent. I know her patterns. She blinks fast when she's caught, like a glitchy machine trying to reboot. The voice on the other end didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just started reading, word for word, the same messages she thought were private. The ones she wrote from hotel lobbies and bathroom stalls and Lyft rides home. And she panicked. She hung up. But it was too late. Because now the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was weaponized. She was alone in a house with no one to lie to, no one to distract, and no idea who was watching her, or how long they had been. That's what guilt does. It makes shadows feel alive. It turns every noise into a confrontation, every creak into judgment, every unread message into a countdown. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want her to suffer. I just wanted her to understand, really understand, what it feels like to be surrounded by things you can't explain, things you can't fix, to live inside a version of reality you built on deception and realize it's collapsing in slow motion while you smile for the world. Meanwhile, I was 10 miles away, sitting in a park, watching ducks, eating a gas station sandwich that tasted like salt and cardboard in freedom. My phone buzzed. 10 missed calls. Then a text. "Kyle, please, we need to talk." Then another. "Who was that number? What's going on?" Then, "Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay." Now that was interesting. "Please tell me you're okay." That's when it hit her. She wasn't scared I was angry. She was scared I was unhinged. That I'd snapped. that I might do something that would make her the victim in this twisted little performance she was suddenly losing control of. But I was okay. That's what made it worse. Because now she couldn't even blame my reaction. I was calm. I was gone. And worst of all, I was quiet. And quiet men, we terrify the performers. By the time the sun began melting behind the horizon, Morgan was no longer in control of the narrative. She had tried. Oh, she had tried to reclaim it. She called her sister first, pretending it was just a weird day. "Kyle's acting distant," she said, voice trembling, trying to sound like a woman whose husband had simply ghosted her for reasons unknown. Then she sprinkled in fear. Not too much, just enough to make her look like the worried wife. But even her sister didn't take the bait. "Is this about Zayden?" she asked flatly. Morgan paused. The silence must have roared in her ears. Then came the answer that cracked her performance. "Wait. How do you know about Zayden?" The line went dead. That's when she really started to sweat. Because Morgan always thought of betrayal as a private act. Something you tucked neatly between appointments. An affair wasn't a bomb, in her mind. It was a secret hallway. A place you could step into and out of, unnoticed. But she hadn't realized that hallways echo. And people talk. And shadows stretch when light finally touches them. She raced to her laptop. Opened her emails. Checked every folder, every draft. Then her social media. Then her private notes app where she kept emotional thoughts she used to craft her Instagram captions. But everything looked the same. No signs of tampering. No hacker's footprint. No warning. That's what unsettled her the most. The precision. Someone had seen everything and left nothing broken. Which meant it wasn't an accident. It was design. That's when she made her next move. A mistake wrapped in desperation. She drove. Not to the hotel. Not to the restaurant she booked with her green light only guy. She drove to my office. It was closed. She pounded on the glass door like it owed her an explanation. Nothing. She called my coworkers. Voicemail. She texted my boss. "Have you heard from Kyle?" A full hour passed before she got the reply. "He resigned. Yesterday morning." That part one hadn't even included in the letter. I didn't need to. She thought she knew how I operated, that I was too passive, too scared of change, too predictable to ever blow up my life. But she didn't realize I'd already done it. Quietly. Strategically. I'd spent months preparing. The resignation. The finances. The exit. I didn't burn bridges. I built a tunnel and vanished under them. And now she was above ground, pacing the ruins of a life she assumed she could rebuild with tears and timing. When she got back home, it was dark. The house felt unfamiliar. Smaller. Walls closer. Every room she stepped into seemed to accuse her. She turned on every light. Like that would help. Then she opened the fridge. Empty, except for a single plastic container on the top shelf. Inside was the avocado toast she made 2 mornings ago. That was the moment she broke. She dropped to the kitchen floor and cried, not because of the toast, but because for the first time, she understood nothing around her was real anymore. Not the plans. Not the escape. Not even the affair. Because Zayden, the fantasy man, the beautiful exit, the flirtation with freedom, had stopped answering her too. She called him again, trembling. Voicemail. Then again. Disconnected. And finally, with no one else to call, she picked up the note I left and read it again. Only this time, she noticed something she hadn't before. A word she hadn't registered in her panic. "You can go to your date tonight." That one word, "can," sat differently now. Because it wasn't permission. It was a dare. And suddenly, she wasn't sure if she had ever really known who I was at all. Morgan didn't sleep that night. Not a second. She didn't even try. She sat on the edge of the bed with the bedside lamp flicked on, the room too bright to rest in and too quiet to escape from. Her phone screen stayed black. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing from me. Nothing from Zayden. The silence wasn't just loud. It was calculated. She must have looked at that blank screen 100 times, willing it to light up, terrified it might. I know her well enough to picture it. The pacing, the shaky glass of wine she didn't finish, the 30 times she almost called her sister again, the mirror she kept glancing into, as if checking to see if she still looked like someone lovable. Or worse, believable. By morning, something inside her cracked in a different way. Not panic anymore. Not confusion. A need. A sick, gnawing need to find someone, anyone, who could tell her she hadn't just imagined the last few months. That Zayden had been real. That something she built hadn't turned to vapor. She needed ground beneath her feet. So she did the only thing she could think of. She got in her car and drove 3 hours out of the city to the coffee shop where they'd met. Not where he worked, not where he lived. She didn't know either of those things. Just this: he liked the place. Said it had soul. Said she had good taste for picking it that one random Tuesday. That was a lie, too. He picked it. She was just late. She sat at the same corner table. The staff didn't recognize her. The barista was new. She ordered a drink she didn't want just to sit down and pretend she belonged there. She watched the door like it owed her closure. Every time it opened, her eyes twitched, her breath caught. Nothing. No sign of him. No leather jacket. No crooked smile. No voice that made her feel like the lead actress in a movie he was directing from across the table. He wasn't coming. But someone else was already there. A man was seated 2 tables away. Clean cut. Neutral clothes. Looked like someone you'd walk past in a grocery store and forget immediately. But Morgan noticed something, or maybe it was instinct, because she kept glancing his way. And after 20 minutes, he looked right at her and nodded. Once. Just once. She didn't approach him. She didn't have to. When she left, he followed. Not in a threatening way. Not like a stalker. Like a shadow that had been there the entire time and was just now stepping into the light. She drove home, checking her rearview mirror more than the road. No one behind her. No one obvious. But that didn't stop her skin from crawling. She got home and locked every door. Sat on the couch and pulled her knees to her chest. That's when the knock came. Not the door. The window. Just one single knock. She screamed, jumped. But when she yanked the curtain back, there was no one there. Just her own reflection looking back at her, wild-eyed and unrecognizable. On the kitchen counter sat the remains of the letter I wrote. She had read it so many times. The paper was torn, the edges soft from handling. But she still hadn't flipped it over. Because there was something on the back. She hadn't checked. Not until now. She turned it over, hands trembling, and there, in small, centered print, was a line she hadn't seen. You trusted a fantasy. Now meet the man behind it. Her stomach dropped. Because Zayden wasn't his name. Zayden wasn't anyone at all. And she was starting to realize the entire affair had been a setup from the beginning. Only now did she realize. She hadn't been the one playing a game. She'd been playing in one. That night, Morgan didn't turn on any lights. She sat in the dark with her back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest, every creak of the house now an alarm bell in her mind. She wasn't afraid of me. That's what made it worse. She was afraid of what she didn't know. And for the first time in her carefully curated life, she realized she didn't have the script. She wasn't the author anymore. She was a character in someone else's plot, and she had no idea how far back the story went. She couldn't stop thinking about the man at the cafe. The nod. The line on the back of the letter. You trusted a fantasy. Now meet the man behind it. Her hands kept shaking. She didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She just sat, frozen in thought, reliving every moment of the affair, only now through a different lens. The things Zayden said to her. The compliments. The way he always seemed to know just when she needed reassurance. The moments where she swore he'd finish her sentences. Back then, it felt like chemistry. Fate. Now it felt like a script. Because it was. She opened her laptop and typed his number into a search bar. Nothing. She checked the profile again. Still there, still perfect, but suddenly too perfect. All the photos were staged. Every caption just vague enough to avoid detail. Not a single tag. Not a single photo with another person. She clicked on one of the earliest posts and reverse searched the image. It wasn't his. It wasn't even original. It was a stock photo. And just like that, the bottom dropped out. The panic became something physical. Her stomach churned. Her throat closed. She stumbled into the bathroom and vomited, hands gripping the cold porcelain like it could anchor her to reality. She looked in the mirror again, but this time she didn't even recognize herself. The woman staring back wasn't confident or desired or free. She looked used. Used by someone who had watched her so carefully he'd known exactly what kind of man she would fall for. And I had. Because Zayden never existed. Not in the way she thought. The voice, the charm, the whole persona, it was fabricated. Designed. Tailored for her blind spots. For her wounds. For her ego. I knew what she needed to hear because I used to be the one she whispered those needs to in the middle of the night. I used to be the one who held her after her panic attacks. The one who read her thoughts before she said them. And when I realized she was slipping away, that she wasn't just lost but willingly walking away, I made a decision. I didn't chase her. I built her a path. A fantasy man. A digital mask. A perfect escape. And I waited for her to walk directly into it. She gave herself completely to him. Emotionally. Mentally. Physically. And the whole time, she thought it was her choice. That she was being bold. Rebellious. Empowered. But every message? I saw it. Every plan? I heard it. Every lie she rehearsed in the mirror before she spoke to me, I knew it word for word. Because I wasn't just watching. I was him. Not alone, of course. I had help. But the bones of the idea, the emotional blueprint, that was mine. I gave her something she couldn't resist, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I wanted her to see what she had become. How easy it was to fool her. How desperately she wanted to believe something beautiful could exist just for her, with no consequences. And now, sitting on the cold tile floor, sobbing into a towel, she finally understood the one thing I'd never been able to make her see. It's not betrayal when the door you walked through was built just for you. The only question now was whether she'd try to claw her way back into the truth, or bury herself deeper in the illusion she helped create. Because I wasn't done yet. And neither was the man she thought was just a ghost. 2 days passed. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't watch from afar. I didn't need to. Some people think closure is a door that slams. For me, it was a door I walked through and just never looked back at. I wasn't angry anymore. Not bitter. Not even sad. I was just free. That kind of freedom doesn't come from escape. It comes from acceptance. And I had finally accepted that I was never going to be the man she wanted. Not because I wasn't enough, but because she was chasing something that didn't exist. And in the end, she caught it. And it destroyed her fantasy. I moved into a small apartment a few towns over. Nothing special. Thin walls. Bad plumbing. But it was mine. I bought a second-hand couch and a plant I'm probably going to forget to water. I started journaling. Real journaling. Not the cryptic lines she used to write to fake growth, but raw thoughts. Honest words. No audience. No performance. Just me. Morgan tried to reach out once more. Just once. She sent an email. No subject. Just one line. I know I deserve nothing, but I hope someday you remember the part of me that tried. I read it 5 times. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. Just because I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not an apology. Not understanding. Not even regret. I didn't hate her. I just didn't carry her anymore. Because somewhere in the wreckage of who we were, I found a version of myself I'd forgotten. The version who could breathe without tiptoeing. The version who didn't have to second-guess laughter or wonder if affection was being rationed. I started taking walks again. I made eye contact with strangers. I signed up for a cooking class. Just me and 8 elderly women who insisted I chop onions wrong. And for the first time in years, I laughed without checking the room first. One night, I stood on my tiny balcony with a warm cup of tea, listening to the hum of traffic in the distance. And I realized something. She was never the storm. She was the fog. Beautiful. Enveloping. But when she left, the sky cleared. And I could finally see myself again. That was the real ending. Not revenge. Not a twist. Not a breakdown. Just this quiet, profound sense of becoming whole, without needing someone else to hand me the missing pieces. Morgan went back to her world. I don't know if she ever told anyone the truth. Maybe she did. Maybe she told her friends I went crazy. That I ghosted her. That I cracked under pressure. Let her. Let her keep the story she can live with. Because I already have mine. And this one doesn't end with betrayal. It ends with peace.